And so, zooming out into the broad, vast perspective of just being. Zooming out from the focus of the mind upon the me and my story. Seeing from the true perspective, seeing from the true eye, the vast unbounded field. Letting go of all the details, letting go of all the content, and being with what is important. This moment, here now, just as it is, that you already are whole, complete perfection. In the zooming out, you are resting in your wholeness, and you are watching the dream story. But you recognize that you are not touched or affected in any way, that you are utterly free of all that is moving and changing, and your stillness and your simplicity is all that matters. You are the breathless being in awe of your very own nature. At the top of the in-breath, the little pause before the breath turns around is the doorway to the infinite field that is your very own nature. As the breath seems to draw in that space before the breath turns around, it is to feel the infinite vastness, the infinite wholeness. And then watch as the exhale naturally comes, and at the bottom, in the space before the breath turns around, the doorway to the infinite field of being. Now let the infinite field at the top of the breath and the infinite field at the bottom of the breath meet. This meeting is the zooming out. You zoom out, and then you are watching the one who is being breathed. But you are the breathless being. You can see the body, can see the mind, can see the story, but you are not touched or affected in any way. Between the breaths is the doorway to the infinite nature. Between every word is the doorway to the infinite nature. Between everything, here is the vast, silent presence, the infinite field, resonating at the frequency of now, resonating at the frequency of simple truth, just being itself, so whole, so clear, so pure, so full. And you already are. It is just about where you are seeing from, where you are resting. The habit is to rest with the attention, with the mind, so concerned with me, so concerned with details, so concerned with getting it right, so concerned with trying to solve the me. But it is to know that the me cannot be solved. You are not a riddle to solve. You are not a puzzle to try to find all the pieces of. You are whole already. You are wholeness. There is nothing to solve, nothing to fix. It is not about finding out where you are getting it wrong and trying to make it right. This is the dream. This is the trap. This is the illusion. When you zoom out, you can see so simply and so quickly in this spontaneous, alive moment. You can see that it matters not. If you play in the dream, you will play infinitely, eternally in the dream. It is about escaping from the dream, and the escape from the dream is here now. The escape from the dream is to not live the lie for another moment. See the falsity and do not live it. See the falsity and be so compelled by where you are seeing from. Be so compelled by your true self that you are not willing to live the falsity, the false game of separation, when you know that it is not true. But how compelling it is, how compelling it is to keep striving and trying to fix and change and make it better and become more, to become more of a person, where true freedom is about losing the person to the infinite wholeness that is your true nature. Losing the person, losing the personal into the impersonal. Of course, the mind that is so intent upon making a better me, imagines as part of the dream that to lose the person to the impersonal self would be terrible. But what does it know? What does it truly know? All that accumulated knowledge, all that bookish knowledge means nothing, nothing in the light of true, pure knowledge. True, pure knowledge of the self. It's the only knowing that is needed, because the knowing of yourself is freedom itself. Knowing of the self is freedom itself. So zoom out from being so concerned and compelled with the me. The humility to let it all go, to let go of the story, to let go of everything that you are trying to fix and make better. All of the subtle ways that can be so well-meaning, so sweetly intentioned. But if it is the dream and you are feeding the falsity, you are trapped. You are trapped by your own mind, in the mind that thinks that it can make things better. The mind that thinks that it knows how to do this. So as these words come, it is just to let the pointings point. Shine the light of truth. Shine the light of truth upon all the habits that can be so compelling, the conditioned habits to keep attempting to fix, resolve, and change the me into a better me. We could even say to change the me into the self, the ultimate magic trick that the mind thinks that it's capable of. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get right to the bottom of all of the things that are obstructing me, and I am going to become an enlightened being. I've got this. I've got this. I know the way. Just read another book, just watched another YouTube, and this time, I know the way. I'm going all the way. The only way to go all the way is to leave that one behind. Leave that one behind. Leave that one and its belief that it knows behind. And fall right now, in this moment here, spontaneously, gloriously, into the now so deeply. Fall into your own presence and be free now. Be free of that one that thinks they know. Be free now. Be free. Zoom out. Be the breathless being. Just being yourself. Watching the one. The body, the mind, watching it all, watching it being breathed, can even feel the life force, the aliveness of being the life force that is moving and animating the form, but is not touched. You are the radiance, you are the aliveness, radiance of the self. This radiance that is not inside or outside. It just is. It's everywhere, simultaneously, awake to itself at every single point of the infinite field, alive and awake and knowing itself and sparkling, glimmering, shimmering with that knowing. And that shimmering, glimmering knowing is wholeness, the wholeness of being yourself. Zoom out, catch the breath, and at the top of the in-breath, feel in that pause, even hold the breath just for a second and feel the vast field. Feel that you are not attached to the body. You are not bound by the mind, that you are everywhere, openness, nowhere. You are just here. And then watch the exhale, empty, empty, empty. And recognize that you are still full. At the bottom of the out-breath, catch the pause. Feel the infinite field. And then join the two together. Join the infinite field at the top of the in-breath and the infinite field at the bottom of the out-breath. Marry them. Find the union. And that union is yourself. That union is the breathless being that is watching the mind, watching the body, but utterly free, utterly free. The bliss of being, the breathless being. You meet the eternal nature, the immortal nature, that you no longer need the breath of life that keeps the body alive. You recognize your immortal nature. You recognize that who you are is not dependent upon the body or the mind. You recognize that you are eternal, immortal being, and that you are utterly free of the body and the mind. That you are not the person that you thought you were. That you are the impersonal self. The self that is self-contained and utterly free in this moment, this eternal, timeless moment. That you are not a nano breath away from yourself. It is just about looking for yourself in the right place. So the one that thinks that they can find their way to the self, it is to let that one go and let the self find itself in the emptiness, in the openness of this moment, free of content, free of distraction, free of the habit to be identified with the mind and the body. Recognize that you cannot do the following of what is being pointed to. You cannot turn these pointings into instructions because it will create a trap. It will create a trap where the mind is trapped trying to get somewhere. To look in the right place is to look into the felt sense of your own presence. Look through being, true looking. Look with the eye of being. Look with the true eye that just is. See yourself. See that you already are. The seeing that you already are is the felt sense. The seeing is the felt sense, clear seeing. It's the felt sense that you are here now. You can feel yourself here now. You know you are here now. The simplicity of your own felt existence is existence itself. It is not an individual existence. The felt sense of existence opens to the knowing that this existence is the impersonal existence of the being, the impersonal existence of the infinite eternal field of being, the field of silence, the field of stillness, the field of infinite truth that is eternally free. It is to notice that as soon as you come into connection with yourself, just being, that all of that compelling pull of the mind to cycle around and around, trying to resolve itself, trying to fix itself, trying to be what it thinks it needs to be. But the here now, the felt sense of your own simple existence is the escape from the dream, the immediate and eternal escape from the dream. The stillness, the silence, the simplicity of just being. There is nothing to work out. There is nothing to solve. There is nothing to get right, because you are right. You are right and you are good in your true nature. You are goodness. You are goodness that has no opposite. You are right that has no opposite. You are the purity, the immaculate being that has no opposite. Even the humanness is not the opposite of divinity. Humanness is the most profound expression of divinity. It's absolutely one and the same, because there is only one, and so everything has to be the same. Differentiation is just a creation of the mind. The one that is trying to be right will always be finding ways to justify itself by making other things wrong. Just to see the habit, just to see the habit. The one that wants to be right, the one that wants to know, the one that wants to hold a position and be in control. It is just to see the habit, just to see the habit. And then to feel yourself here now and be free, free of the habit. To see all of the subtle ways that control happens through trying, striving, wanting, desiring, needing. Feel yourself here now and feel that the being that you are, the simple being, needs nothing. That this moment is so rich and full in its utter emptiness. The stillness, the silence, the simplicity. Zooming out, zooming out. Catch the breath, and at the tiny space between the in and the out, open to the infinite vast field that is the true nature. And then watch, watch. Feel the truth of who you are. Feel the truth of who you are. Be the breathless one, the breathless being. Just being, just being. That where you are just being is not confined to any singular point. As the breathless being, you are everywhere. Infinite, unbounded, uncontained, and you are not defined by anything. You are not defined in any way. You are not explainable. You are not understandable. You are wildly unreasonable. You are the self, just being, spontaneous, alive, wild and free. And as these words come, it is just to feel the resonance, to feel the resonance, receive the resonance. Feel what is being pointed to. As the pointing comes, allow it to illuminate the truth of your own being. Allow the pointing to illuminate what you already are. Do not take it as an instruction and decide that you have to try to work that out in the future. Let the immediacy of the pointing be so richly here in the presence of now that it spontaneously illuminates what is being pointed to as who you already are. The pointing is just switching the light on each pointing light on, light goes on, light goes on, light goes on, light goes on. And you are, you are, you are, and you know that you are. You know who you are, and you know who you have always been. That you have always been the infinite being. You have always been yourself, eternal, infinite self, true self. Right here, underneath the moving, changing field that plays the divine play. Depending on the perspective, it will play as complete and utter illusion, or it will be the divine Leela. It's the same, it just depends on the perspective. If you are seeing from separation, then it is the illusion. If you are seeing from the being, you will see that it is just a divine play. You will see the truth. You will see that it is just a dream, and that it has no more relevance than a dream that comes at night. It is the waking dream. It is the waking dream. And the glory of the waking dream is that it offers the possibility to be awake to yourself, consciously, consciously awake to yourself. So at nighttime, you are unconsciously awake to yourself. Gorgeous, but not useful. Well, has its uses. But we have to be consciously awake to the self, consciously awake to the self that is true. Right here now, seeing yourself, consciousness itself, seeing itself, awake to itself, seeing the glory of itself, right here, illuminating the truth, seeing through the illusion, seeing the dream for what it is, a divine play. That we are not here to play the game of separation and try to win it. That is the habit of the me, trying to win the game of separation. It's a bargaining game. Everything is conditioned, and you are only bargaining with your own mind. You think you are bargaining with others, but you are only bargaining with your own mind. You are only resisting your own mind. You are only questioning your very own mind. Your unique view is created out of your very own mind. It does not exist. Because it is one consciousness, you can have conversations with apparent others, and there are seeming similarities because there's one consciousness. And when you have those conversations, the one consciousness is recognizing the familiar themes. The one consciousness is playing with itself in exactly the same way at every point. And yet there are subtleties. There are subtleties that are differences in nature. And there are subtleties that give rise to different, we could say, karmic patterns that are being played out. But the differences are arising out of the sameness. They're arising out of the one consciousness. So your unique view, when you bring your unique view into conversation with another, and you have a discussion, trying to work it all out, trying to be right, trying to be seen, trying to be validated, wanting to be loved, you're really just in a conversation with your own mind, in a conversation with your own mind. And sometimes you will find the validation, and then the ego sense feels good. It feels peaceful. And sometimes you won't find the validation. And then the ego sense feels deflated. And then it feels like it has to work harder. But it doesn't matter which place the ego sense is resting in. Both places are misery. Pleasure and pain in the game of separation are both misery. Because when there is pleasure, there is just a fear of losing it, and there is just an attached attempt to try to hold on to it, to try to keep it, and try not to allow any kind of pain to come in, not to allow disappointment to come in. But you have to recognize by now that the cycles around again and again and again, again and again and again, that the only way to be free of the cycle is to give up trying to win the game of separation, to give up trying to fix the me, and be free. Be free in ways that the mind cannot imagine. It is to be with yourself here now. When you feel the being here now, when we've just pointed to the cycle of pain and pleasure and the misery of that, the disappointment of that, and then you feel the being, oh, the being feels so fresh, so free, so open and clear. In comparison, we could say, to that felt sense of contraction. So we don't want to make comparisons within the world of the play of separation, because comparison is that backwards and forwards. But we can see the contrast. We can see the contrast between feeling the freedom of being and the contraction of dancing the small dance. Feeling the infinite, vast freedom of being yourself, knowing yourself, where there is no identification at any point. You feel this openness, this spaciousness, this clarity, this purity. There is happiness here. There is joy here. And it is here because it is your true nature. It is the self. Happiness, just being. Joy that is causeless. Free of the cycle of cause and effect. The causeless joy and causeless happiness. When you feel this, the lightness, the openness, the spontaneous freedom, the spontaneous clarity of true knowing, and then the recognition of how tight it feels to be moving in the small dance. So it is to be with yourself. Let the light shine on the habits. Let the light shine on the habits and bring awareness to the habits, not in order to make a plan of what to do about those habits, but just for the light to shine upon those habits. So just for the light to shine upon the habits. Let them be freed by the light of awareness. Let them be freed by the light of awareness just simply shining upon the habits. And so you recognize what is true. You recognize where there can be the habits to distract. You recognize as the aware being that can see. And you shine the light. There is nothing to do. It is just about being. And when you are being, you are free of those habits. You are blissfully free. You are the breathless being. You are just watching. The focus upon the self brings a depth of clear seeing that is so much beauty, so much joy, and utter simplicity. It is to just feel yourself being. Feel the being and feel the knowing of being. This knowing is pure knowing. This knowing is the preciousness of yourself, knowing yourself, the self knowing itself, remembering itself. So precious, so beautiful, so clear. The self knowing itself is the knowing that you want to stay close to, intimate with knowing yourself. Feel the beauty, feel the richness, feel the clarity, that it makes no sense to the mind, but you feel yourself here, and you are free of the habits, you are free of thoughts, you are free to be yourself. The stillness, the silence, the simplicity. Simply being. There is nothing to do, nothing to fix, nothing to resolve, nothing to achieve, nothing to understand. You just are. You just are, and you have always been. And this is the recognition. This has always been here. This self has always been here. It is the remembering of the part of yourself that is infinite. Remembering of the part of yourself that is eternal and clear, immaculate wholeness. Remembering of the wholeness that just is. In the simplicity of being, can feel so much so immediately. Cannot find it with the mind, cannot make sense. But right here, it is to allow clarity to dawn through just resting with yourself and allowing a depth of relaxation into yourself, where you just slip into this zoomed out, infinite, restful being. And let the revelation come. Let the revelation come as the innermost being itself whispers the truth in the silence. This is who you are. This is the truth that you have always known. It is not a discovery for the mind. There is nothing to work out, nothing to understand. And it is not about leaving this clear seeing to try to work out how do you live this. It is only through staying with yourself, resting in the being, that it can be lived on the surface of life. It knows, knowing knows. The eternal self knows how to live this, does not need the mind, does not need to be micromanaged in any way. It is actually about allowing the freedom of your wild, unedited, unconditioned self to live without the constraints and restrictions that get overlaid by the conditioned habits. So the great longing to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, to be worthy. At the root of all of this is the true longing to know yourself, to hear the whisper that frees everything, that the only validation that is worth anything is to confirm within your own knowing the truth of who you are. And you find a worthiness. You find a worthiness that just laughs at the possibility that there could ever even be unworthiness. How is it possible? How could there ever be anything that could be unworthy of knowing God? How could there be anyone unworthy or unlovable? When you know the truth of who you are, you see the ludicrous nature of the mind and all that it conjures up in order to keep itself separate. It creates fears and desires in order to keep a sense of safety. All it is keeping a sense of safety from is everything that is longed for. Everything that is longed for is the other side of the boundary, the contraction, the wall that the me has put up, we could say around the heart. The me has encased the heart in what it thinks is safe and secure and trustworthy, but it is a false trust, and it is a quality of living that always feels to be not enough, because that is the human condition, always to have a feeling of not enough, always to have a feeling that something is missing or lacking, because in essence there is. You are not knowing yourself, and that feeling of lack or something missing has to be there in order for you to leave the confines of the conditioned way and discover the true unconditioned nature. It's a divine plan. It's a divine plan. Of course, what is true is wholeness itself. There is nothing missing or lacking, and nor has there ever been. And when you come to the feeling of being yourself, you can feel that. Can feel a sense of wholeness where nothing is wanted or needed. Can see the illusion of the human condition that always feels to be lacking, and how that mechanism is a self-perpetuating mechanism that is a trap. It is the dream. It is all the dream. And the only way to freedom is to be here now. The only way to freedom is to be yourself. Be the self that you have always been. Be the self that you have always been, that is utterly free, clear and open. And so that which feels to be the personal heart that has been protected and guarded, it finds its true nature in the infinite heart, that it never has been separate, never has been divided from the whole. And the infinite heart is the richness of the self that knows itself as love. So all of that seeking for love from another in things, the discovery is that that love is your very own nature. The infinite heart is the knowing of that love as yourself. It is the heart that is ever open, ever clear, where there is no separation, there is love, unconditioned love, just loving. To know this as the true nature, all need and want of love in the external dissolves, because your fullness, your wholeness is known to be yourself. That there never has been anything missing. To know the wholeness of being is to know yourself. To know the wholeness that you have always been. So rich, so full, and yet sublimely empty. Empty of content, empty of details, empty of the need to fix, empty of wanting, and full, full, full of yourself. The self knowing itself is the utter fullness, the richness. So it is to feel yourself here now, just being, simply being yourself. Feel the freedom, the peace that you are. Feel the happiness, the simplicity that you are. Feel the openness, the infinite vastness that you are. Feel how there is nothing needed. And then it is to stay close in intimate knowing with yourself, communing with yourself, remembering, feeling the revelation of being yourself. Mm. Mm. falling in to yourself, falling into love, falling into love. Mm. 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 You already are the wholeness, the perfection, the immaculate being that is pure and innocent and true. And this knowing is the knowing of the being itself. Mm. Mm. Resting here in the simplicity of being, drinking in the nectar of your own beauty, your own purity. Mm. 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 Being the breathless being. Mm. 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 It is to know that the longing for love, the longing for God is only here by virtue of God placing that longing here, by virtue of love itself placing the longing here. That the true longing is love's longing for you, God's longing for you to know the truth beyond doubt and without question. And it is here now that the openness of being offers that incredible possibility to fall all the way into yourself, to fall into God, to fall into love, to fall into truth. To feel the resonance of your own knowing and keep falling in and in and in to the not knowing what, how, where, but just knowing yourself is the only knowing that is important, so precious, because it is the knowing of your true self, and this knowing is freedom.